Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 26.5 RC2 or Release Candidate 2 has been out for about a day, with the original RC releasing earlier in the week. iOS 26.4.2 also released to the public about 2 weeks ago, but there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.5 RC2 is out. What's new video. We'll talk about the latest Apple news, we'll also talk about some features, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video there's over 11,000 votes and 96 comments. I've gone over all the comments to determine what the update is like for everyone, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, Apple recently lost a class action lawsuit in the USA for false advertising due to Apple Intelligence features that never shipped but were advertised. I mentioned this in the weekly Apple News video earlier this week, but many have asked how they could place a claim if they actually were affected. At this point, it seems it'll be a few months until you can place a claim. However, all of the details on who's eligible, as far as what the form contains and how you can submit that, is still going to be a couple months away, but I'll keep you updated when it's available. So far, it seems like it's going to be available in the USA only for those who purchase the iPhone 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max, or any 16 model. So again, I'll let you know when it's available. Apple has made a deal with Intel to produce future Apple silicon, according to the Wall Street Journal. This is in an effort to diversify the supply chain and not solely rely on TSMC to produce its chips. So it looks like they could work with Intel in the near future in some of their chip fabrication factories and get everything rolling, and then of course be produced in the USA as well as other parts of the world and then placed into iPhones and other devices. Apple this week highlighted 4 short-form videos about filmmakers using iPhone 17 Pro Max to create their films. You can see it at a film festival in Mumbai, and you can see more about it, and I'll link it in the description below, but you can actually see the videos on YouTube as well, what they actually made and how they made them with this story. So I'll link this in the description. Apple has now brought the Apple Watch to the Education Store in different countries. Now it's available in Australia, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. People in those countries mentioned can now use the education discount on Apple Watches if they're a student or educator. Also, Apple is now requiring more verification to purchase from the Education Store. Typically, you could just search for Education Store and purchase directly from it, but it looks like now in the USA, Canada, and Chile, as of Friday, you'll actually have to verify this through Unidays systems. So this allows them to process if you're actually an educator. It's also got a separate setup, so if you're homeschooled, you can process it that way as well. So this is something that now requires verification, but at least it's available in more places, and more products are available in more places with a discount. Apple this week also highlighted Swift Student Challenge winners. You can see this here on their Apple Newsroom website. It's based on the apps that won this year, and on the Apple Newsroom website you can see some of the apps created with a focus on accessibility. Swift Student Challenge winners also get the opportunity to go to WWDC 2026. So again, I'll link this in the description. You can check it out for yourself with some of the different apps they've created. When it comes to new features, one thing I didn't mention in the initial What's New video with the RC has to do with wallpaper. Within the wallpaper, if we scroll down to the new Pride wallpaper, if we go into this and we slide all the way to the right, you actually have the option for customization. So you'll see that here, where you can select 12 different colors and fully customize the wallpaper yourself however you'd like. So if you want to select maybe red, blue, different shades of blue, you can customize it just like this, leave it alone, and fully customize it however you'd like. So that's something that's available, and again, they've fixed some of this with RC2, but this is great that they have it. And also another thing that's been updated is if we cancel out of this, we'll get out of here, go back to our main wallpaper here, and then go over to the Watch app. They actually updated this in the face gallery so you can see the latest watch faces here with the new Pride watch face. So you have all of these where initially in the RC1 version of this, they didn't show up for me. I actually had to search for them. So now they're showing up as they should. But again, they're here. You can customize these as well. Again, with the RC2, I confirm that it seems Apple removed the auto pairing functionality with their Magic Trackpad, Magic Mouse, and Magic Keyboard accessories. Typically, you could plug this in and they'll work, but what they were doing in earlier betas is it would automatically pair when you disconnected a cable from it, and then it would continue to work wirelessly. Now, if you plug them in, it still works, but if you unplug them and they're previously paired with maybe a Mac, it jumps back to controlling that Mac. So it looks like they've removed that functionality. Maybe they'll add it in iOS 26.6. When it comes to app updates this week, there's a few worth mentioning. The first one has to do with Amazon Photos, where we have a new carousel here. So if you use Amazon Photos instead of maybe Apple Photos or Google Photos, that's now available. Also, if you're using Grok, maybe you use X, you can now use Grok on Apple CarPlay. So if you want to use it as a voice AI, you can now use that within Apple CarPlay. When it comes to WhatsApp, there's a slight update here. If you go into WhatsApp, some people have been getting the Liquid Glass update. However, some people are seeing a new interface for phone calls. So let me know if you're seeing this. Not everyone is seeing it yet, but it looks like there's a new interface as someone mentioned it on X. Also on the iPad, Instagram has gotten an update. So you'll see right now, 3 days ago, they completely redesigned it, and it looks like it has a new update specifically designed for iPad. So that should be better if you've been using it there. Also, if you use Apple Music Classical, it's been updated with stability and performance enhancements. When it comes to iPhone 17, it seems that it's the best-selling iPhone this year around the world. According to Counterpoint Research, iPhone 17 is in the top spot, with the Pro Max second, followed by the 17 Pro. So it looks like they're really selling quite a few of these. It doesn't really surprise me that the 17 is selling so well, since it now has a 120Hz ProMotion display, some upgraded chipsets, and is just a much better device overall compared to its predecessor. So it's great to see so many people upgrading to it and benefiting from ProMotion at least. Now with iOS 27, we should see the first official iOS 27 features in the coming weeks, and this is if Apple continues their yearly trend. Typically, Apple will show off accessibility features as they're always shown first, and last year they showed it on the 13th, which was a couple days before Accessibility Awareness Day. However, this year Accessibility Awareness Day falls on May 21st, so maybe we'll see it on the 19th, or sometime around then. So it could be a week or two before we see it, but typically we'll see the first features then, and of course I'll let you know when it's announced. When it comes to releases this week, Apple released a new Safari technology preview as they do every couple weeks. You can see it here with version 2.43. If you want to test it out, it's available for macOS Tahoe and macOS Sequoia. Of course, iOS 26.5 is expected to release to the public as soon as Monday. Typically, we'll see it on the Monday or maybe a little bit later if there's additional issues they're finding, but usually it should be Monday. Also then, later that week or maybe the following week, we'll see iOS 26.6 Beta 1, and then of course we're just 1 month away from WWDC, which is on June 8th, and that's where we expect to see iOS 27 and hopefully see iOS 27 Beta 1 released that day. We could see it released then, with a public beta sometime toward July, and then of course a public release, usually in September around the iPhone 18 launch. When it comes to the overall experience this week, AirPods Pro 3 did get a little bit better after the last update. I've been using them full time. I've edited with them some. They do seem to break up a little bit on the Mac, but they definitely seem better. But maybe it will be even better with macOS 26.5, so I haven't tested it with that just yet. But they seem to connect better, definitely a little bit better or more stable connection, and they seem like they sound about the same. I have heard a few people say that active noise cancellation is worse, but I haven't experienced that myself. Apple this week also released iOS 18.7.9 RC. However, they have not made it available to devices that support iOS 26 again. So this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max. If we go to General and Software Update and we're on the beta, you'll see I'm on iOS 18.7.8, but there is no 18.7.9 RC available. There's no IPSW file available in order to try it out, so we don't know if they're going to release it to the public or not. Now with iOS 26.5 RC and RC2, I've been using it full time on the 17 Pro Max, and there's no major OS changes other than fixing a couple small things going from the RC to RC2. I mentioned them in the RC2 video, but if we go into our wallpaper here, so within the Pride Luminance wallpaper, if we scroll over to where we have the customization again, this customization had an issue before where sometimes you would maybe place a couple colors here and it would disappear as far as the dialog box goes, and you couldn't change the color customization. That has been fixed. As far as anything else, there's quite a few in the RC that said it was quite slow. However, it looks like RC2 fixed that issue for them. So those that were experiencing slowness with the RC have said that the RC2 version fixed those issues. The UI is generally very smooth, but again, there's been occasional stutters. In particular, when it's charging, maybe it was too hot, but you'll see here if I lock, unlock, swipe, it's still a little bit stuttery from time to time. But then there it stuttered, now it's fast again. So I thought they would have fixed this. I don't think it's processing in the background at this point, but again, it's still an issue. Also, the photo quality issue some people were experiencing. So if you went into your photos, maybe with today's wallpaper here, some people would take a photo and say that the quality was really poor. This was in iOS 26.4.2 and has since been fixed with iOS 26.5 RC. Also, general app crashing has improved from games not working properly to working properly again, as well as other apps functioning properly. Also, Apple CarPlay seems to be working much better. I used it for about an hour and a half total, and so far on RC2, it's been working really great. It connects very fast, it works like you would expect, songs load much faster than before, so let me know if you're experiencing the same bug fix here. Also, one person mentioned that if they were using the Shazam app and they go into maybe an item here, let's scroll down, and then maybe we want to purchase this item on iTunes, it would bring them to the home screen instead of actually the song where you could purchase it. So this looks like it's resolved as well. Now there's still some bugs remaining. One you can repeat over and over. For example, if we press and hold, then maybe we tap on a widget, tap back off the widget, tap the dots at the bottom, it will respring every time. That's still here. So again, we can repeat this over and over. We'll do this time with this widget, tap off, tap the dots, and it resprings every time. So that's something I think Apple probably isn't aware about that should be fixed hopefully in a future update or maybe with a new build number once it releases to the public. One other thing though is again the wallpaper dimming bug. Some people are saying it's resolved. It looks pretty good to me here. I thought it was fixed. Other people are saying it's not resolved, but I've changed multiple wallpaper and it looks like it's nice and vibrant still. Also, there's that stutter here. If we go into our wallpaper picker, you'll see if we scroll, it's usually very stuttery. So the frame rate drops and it's just something they need to resolve. Why it's stuttery, I'm not sure. It doesn't look that complicated, but maybe they'll fix it with iOS 27 at this point. When it comes to iOS 26.4.2, of course, it's about to be replaced here, but there's been quite a few little issues, and it was much better than previous updates, but the issues that remain are things such as lock screen delays, poor RAM management, general stuttering and slowness, and some network drops as well. So those things seem like they're probably fixed for the most part in iOS 26.5. Now, when it comes to overall heat and thermals, it feels like it's much better. It is a little bit warm right now, but let's go ahead and run benchmarks again and then see what it's like. So with overall thermals on iPhone 17 Pro Max running iOS 26.5 RC2, it seems like it's a little bit warm, around 37 degrees Celsius. On the iPhone 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.7.8, it's actually cooler despite the device typically running a little bit hotter, so around 35 to 36 degrees Celsius. So that's not typically what I would expect, but it seems like it's running quite hot, so maybe it is still processing in the background. Benchmarks completed, and on the iPhone 17 Pro Max running iOS 26.5 RC2, I have 3,866 for single-core, 9,828 for multi-core. I've heard from some of you that you're already hitting 10,000 for multi-core, so again, I think this is processing in the background, and again, it may take a few days for it to improve, but overall, it's pretty good so far. And here's just the 16 Pro Max on 18.7.8 for comparison. As far as battery life, let's first take a look at a viewer who sent in their battery life. Thanks to Abhishek for sending in his battery life. This is on an iPhone 16e with iOS 26.5 RC1, so we used it throughout the week and had pretty good battery, set to 100% for charging and had 94% battery health. You'll see he had 7 hours and 13 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 56 minutes of screen off time, using 85% of the battery. I'd say that's pretty phenomenal for an iPhone 16e. As far as my battery life, let's go ahead and take a look at settings, battery, and then battery health. I'm at 100% with 79 cycles, and let's go ahead and take a look at my battery usage. So yesterday, you'll see I had 3 hours and 15 minutes of screen active time, 2 hours and 50 minutes of screen idle time, using 74% of the battery. It really hasn't improved a whole lot. You'll see different apps that I've been using here, but if we go back a day, again, 2 hours and 45 minutes using 51% and 2 hours and 58 minutes using 68%. So hopefully it's going to improve even more over time. I just think I have a lot of background processes going on, even though background app refresh is turned off. Now, as far as what you had to say, 53% of you on iOS 26.5 RC and RC2 say that you have better battery than iOS 26.4.2. Now, I think many of you with the RC, if you had slowdowns, you would see the battery affected, but it looks like it's improving greatly for quite a few of you. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.5 RC2, if you're on any version of iOS 26.5, definitely install it, try it out. Hopefully this will be the final build, but there are a few bugs like I mentioned before. So this could be the final build. Maybe we'll get a new build, but either way, try it out and see how it is. If you're on the public version of iOS 26.4.2 or earlier, you could try it out. Keep in mind it still has a few bugs, but it seems like it's a little bit better than what we've had in the public in the past. So either way, it seems like it's stable at this point. When it comes to overall storage, I did share it in the RC2 video, but let's take a quick look. General and then iPhone storage, and we'll wait for it to load. Scroll to the bottom, and we're using 21.77 gigabytes. We haven't really seen an increase here, 14.24. If we take a look at Beta 4, for example, that we have here, go to General and then iPhone storage, wait for it to load, and you'll see again, it's very similar as far as the data usage, very, very close, not really much of a difference here. And then again, with system data, it goes up and down as needed. As long as it's not taking up so much storage that you can't install an app, I would typically not even look at this. It's cache data and other things that the OS use. Now, as far as what you had to say about the overall experience, let's take a look at some of your comments. Alex27951 said, I'm on iOS 26.5 RC, running so smoothly, and on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Fantastic update and longer battery life as well. Marlo700 said, I'm on iOS 26.5 RC on my iPhone 17 Pro, and it's great. Chris Palmer 4983 said, I've been using iOS 26.5 RC on my iPhone 17 Pro. Battery life has been good. The standby battery drain has been great. I easily get all-day battery life. If you're a heavy user, you should have a charger close at hand because you will not make it through a long day. Overall, performance has been smooth and snappy, a few minor bugs, but not anything I would bother writing negative comments on. I have noticed a few lags from scrolling issues, one or two odd app crashes, but not anything I could recreate. My perception of the Apple software still seems to improve with positive results. Good update I would definitely recommend for anyone with a newer device. J Colada 100 said, Hello Aaron, I've installed the beta on some fairly old devices. Beta 4 was very smooth, while the RC noticeably slowed the devices down. However, RC2 is really good and smooth again. I noticed the difference right away after the device rebooted. Hawkins Tech said, I've installed iOS 26.5 RC2 on my iPhone 14, iPhone 12, and iPad Air from 2020. I'm happy to see that it fixed the bug I'm having where every time I added the Pride Luminous wallpaper, it would respring my iPad. Jugal Patel 8422 said, I'm using iOS 26.5 RC. Overall experience of this version is way better than iOS 26.4. Only the lag I found is when you try to switch the new Pride wallpaper colors so fast under custom colors and try to select multiple colors at the same time, it hangs the phone and wallpaper gets to switch to the default Pride wallpaper. Other than that, overall OS is very stable with good battery life. Spiderman2386N8U said, had iOS 26.5 RC on my Air for 3 days now. Performance is good, still seen some home screen lag though, and battery is on the fence. I'll give it a few days, but does feel smoother. Paul Guy 2545 said, the 26.5 public beta 4, and now the RC fixes an issue I had with Apple's Shazam app, where it wouldn't take me properly to the page of iTunes Store where you buy the song. It would just take me to the home page in the public release of iOS 26.4.2. With iOS 18.7.8, iOS 18.7.9 RC, it seems like there's quite a few holdouts still with iOS 18. Many people are waiting for the stability they expect from Apple, and iOS 18 has delivered that, but it did take some time before it got there. But it seems like people are happy with it and not willing to trade that for maybe the newer version with some different visuals. With iOS 26.4.2, it's quickly being replaced, but it brought more stability, but was not without its issues. Apple still seems to have UI stuttering issues we've seen before. Right now it's fairly smooth, however it still isn't perfect, and iOS 26.5 gets us closer to a good experience just like iOS 18.5 did at the same time last year. So is iOS 26.5 ready? Well, those who updated to iOS 26.5 RC2 who had a poor experience on iOS 26.5 RC or even iOS 26.4.2 noticed an immediate improvement. Apple continues to work out the bugs to bring us to what we expect from Apple with iOS releases. iOS 26.5, for me at least, seems ready to go at this point as the best version of iOS 26 yet. That doesn't mean, though, it doesn't have issues like I already showed you. iOS 27 should hopefully fix this and show us how serious Apple is about fixing iOS and we're just about a month away at this point. So hopefully they're very serious about it, bringing stability back, having a snow leopard year where they focus on security, updates, battery life, and stability overall, and just add a few features here and there. So that's everything with iOS 26.4.2 and iOS 26.5 RC and RC2. Hopefully we see the release very soon on Monday, and let me know your experience so far in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.